All right. Sara, take it over.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. And yes, I am Sara Hines, co-founder of the Unity Wellness Center. And this is our presentation on health equity in our city, complex problems and simple solutions. So a little bit about us. Unity Wellness Center, we are a hub of connection and collaboration, which will be centered in East Winston. And we value mental health, holistic wellness, health equity, and compassionate community care. So to introduce you to us, we want to kind of run you through our logo and why we have the logo that we have, because we're really proud of our logo. So our logo is a global butterfly, and it demonstrates our commitment to serve as a safe space for connection and personal transformations. The human form at the center of our logo is a figure representing the human body. The figure is standing tall in an open arm, welcoming stance, which we see as a symbol of the internal openness required for personal growth. The wings of our butterfly are symbols that come from our favorite social justice hymnal that says, "We will rise higher and higher on the wings of compassion, justice, and hope." Now, the butterfly that you see represented in our logo is our idea of representing the transformation and elevation of the mind, body, and spirit. And the hearts within the wings of our butterfly are representing the connection, love, and our collective human heartbeat. Our beautiful blue circle represents the energetic bond and interdependence of all living things between Mother Nature, ourselves, and our community connections. Our blue circle also contains the source of our healing, the unconditional self-love that is always there to uphold and sustain us during our ever-changing life cycles. So that's our lovely logo. Okay, Lindsay. So, okay, I hate to talk about myself, so I'll just tell you a little bit. So yes, I'm Sara Hines. I am the co-founder of the Unity Wellness Center, and I am the director of our peer support services. I hold a bachelor's degree in psychology from Winston-Salem State. I hold a master's degree in child and adolescent developmental psychology from Southern New Hampshire University. And I have a North Carolina certification in peer support for mental health and addiction recovery. Okay. That's good. All right, so I'll start out by telling you a little bit about our unique history, Lindsay and I, and how the Unity Wellness Center was formed. So Lindsay and I met during the peaceful protest and justice rallies, social justice rallies and vigils on the streets of Winston-Salem in the summer of 2020. We were at a rally together, and I presented one of my personal works of spoken word, and Lindsay and her daughter were moved by my presentation, and in return, they wrote a response to my selection and presented it to me at another vigil that we were at together. And from there, we have become very fast friends. Our friendship forms at the intersection of protest and poetry. And in that poetic meeting, we found that we both share something in common: a love for our community and a belief that a connection with our community members helps us solve and heal the wounds that all of us have. All right, Lindsay.
Thank you, Sara. So yeah, I'm Lindsay Peral, and I'm a bilingual family physician, and I'm deeply concerned about the health and wellness of our Winston-Salem community. I've had the honor of calling Winston-Salem my home for the past 28 years. However, with time, I have come to realize that our city is deeply divided, both literally and figuratively, by Highway 52. With our community members living east or along Highway 52, experiencing higher rates of systemic trauma and poverty, and certainly significantly reduced access to living wage jobs, affordable housing, and healthy nutrition. And, based on these disparities, it's not surprising that our community members living east of Highway 52 experience high rates of chronic disease, worse physical health, worse mental health, and more economic hardships. And kind of these pervasive inequalities also explain, I don't know, many of you might have heard this, but the 2015 Harvard economist, Dr. Raj Chetty, his research suggested that the city of Winston-Salem is arguably one of the most difficult cities in the United States in which to escape childhood poverty. And you'll see why, unfortunately, as we go through these slides. But let's go ahead and familiarize ourselves with the demographics of Winston-Salem. And this is based on the latest data that just came out late 2020. It was based on 2019 census data, but it was just released in December of 2020. So the median household income for the city of Winston-Salem is about, $44,500 with an average poverty rate of about 19.7%. And we're about 47% white, 35% Black, 13% Hispanic, 3% other races, and 2% Asian. So that's the city of Winston-Salem overall. And let's quickly look at the Highway 52 being the divide here. I'm going to go ahead and use something to highlight in some areas here. So you can see that here in the magenta, we have our 6 lower wealth census tracts, okay? And a lot of the data that I'm going to be doing is going to compare our 6 lower wealth census tracts to kind of juxtaposed to our 5 most wealthy census tracts in Winston-Salem. So let's first look at the racial divide, okay? So when you look at our 6 lower wealth census tracts in our city of Winston-Salem, it's over 93% Black, what we call BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color, right? So over 93% of our community members living in these 6 lowest or lower wealth census tracts are of a racial minority. And this is in great contrast to when you look at the data for our 5 most wealthy census tracts in green, it's only 8.8% Black, Indigenous, or people of color, right? So we have a significant racial divide there. And then when you look at this next one shows the health divide. So there's actually when you compare the average life expectancy between our 6 lower wealth census tracts compared to our 5 most wealthy census tracts, there's over an 11-year difference in life expectancy. And this is in just only between 3 to, in some cases, less than 1 mile, but within a 3 to 5 mile kind of maximum distance, we have an over 11-year difference in life expectancy. And if you look at that dot in census tract 7, that has the lowest life expectancy compared to the highest life expectancy in 39.06. It's actually an almost 17-year difference in life expectancy. It's actually 16.7 years, okay? Now let's go ahead and look at the wealth divide. I mean, obviously these numbers speak for themselves, right? And when you look at our 6 lower wealth census tracts, the average median household income in $19,700 with an average poverty rate of 50%. Obviously, this is in tremendous contrast to our 5 most wealthy census tracts, where the average median household income is over $135,000 and a poverty rate of only 5%. So, right, we can see there's a lot of division and patterns forming here. So now we're going to look at the prevalence of chronic disease in Winston-Salem. And Sara and I, we've toyed around with how to do this because I'm going to show you a lot of maps, and I hope you'll kind of keep this big picture in mind, okay? Because what we're going to notice is trends, and you'll notice that the darker the color of the brown on the maps, the higher the prevalence of chronic disease. So I'm going to be showing this first map, and this data that I'm presenting, actually, the maps will say they're from 2016 from the CDC. That was the last time the CDC made this beautiful kind of pretty maps, but the data is still true. The latest data that was just released in December of 2020 is the exact same. It only shows widening health disparities. And I'll also highlight some of that most recent data. But this was from, it's the places, it was a collaboration between the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and the CDC. They're trying to provide local data to improve health outcomes. So that's where we got this from. But so the darker the brown, the higher the prevalence of chronic disease, okay? So this first map is looking at the rates of asthma in Winston-Salem, okay? And you can see that they're obviously, the darker the brown, the higher the rates of asthma. So we see east of Highway 52 or along Highway 52, there are higher rates of asthma. This next slide is going to show the rate of COPD, or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. And once again, we're going to see a very similar pattern, higher rates of COPD in and along Highway 52. I want to go ahead and pause here for a second. At this there, you'll notice that there are these two census tracts in particular where they keep showing up with worse health outcomes. And this is census tract 3.02 and 3.01. And 3.02, over 98.5% are racial minorities. They are Black, Indigenous, or people of color. And then similarly in this census tract 3.01, it's over 94% Black, Indigenous, or people of color, right? So we see this tremendous racial divide also when it comes to health in our city. So that was COPD. Now let's look at rates of high blood pressure. So the darker the brown, the higher the rates of disease. So we see the same trend east of Highway 52 and in these particularly kind of economically depressed census tracts right here. This next slide shows high cholesterol. It's a little bit more scattered, but you can still see that in and along Highway 52, there are higher rates of high cholesterol. The next slide shows diabetes. And this, based on the latest data that was just released in December of 2002, you are over twice as likely, I'm sorry, let me correct that. You're over 2.5 times as likely to develop adult diabetes if you live in these census tracts compared to our 5 most wealthy. Over 2.5 times more likely. That's a very significant statistic. This next statistic shows the rate of chronic kidney disease. And once again, based on the latest data, if you live in these census tracts, you're over twice as likely to develop chronic kidney disease compared to living in the wealthier census tracts. The next slide shows coronary artery disease, so heart attacks. And once again, you see a much higher rate of heart disease east and along Highway 52. And this final slide on chronic diseases shows rate of stroke. So if you live in these census tracts, so east of Highway 52 or in the 2 I previously mentioned, you're over 2 times as likely to have a stroke as an adult. So we see very common repetitive patterns, okay? The next slide shows the rate of health insurance status in Winston-Salem. And with this next slide, the darker the color of the blue on the map, the higher the percentage of people who lack health insurance, okay? And unfortunately, not surprising, we see similar trends of disparities. So the darker the blue means that our community members in these areas are lacking health insurance. In fact, based on the latest data released December of 2020, our community members living in these areas are over 3 times as likely to lack health insurance. And obviously that causes devastation, not just for the family, but for the, not just for the adults we think about, but think about the impact that's having on our children and how traumatic. And we know that if you lack health insurance, I mean, obviously there's an obvious thing that it's harder to seek care, right? A lot of people are going to turn you away. And then it's harder to get an appointment. And then when you do get an appointment, well, I guess people are so fearful because healthcare is so expensive. Even if you have good insurance, it's still, you know, it's just, it's so hard for people to afford. So people delay their care. And so people are suffering with more pain, more chronic illness because they're afraid that their family is going to go bankrupt if they seek medical care. And then when they do seek medical care, they get worse treatment. We know we've seen worse outcomes in people that are uninsured. They don't have all the options because they simply are not going to be able to afford all of them. So this is a major, obviously, this is a major contributor to our health disparities. Now we're going to look at access to preventative services in Winston-Salem. And with these maps, you're going to see the darker the blue, the lower the access they have to, you know, that our community members have to important preventative medical services. So this first one shows women over the age of 65 that are up to date on important clinical services. This includes flu shots, vaccinations against pneumonia, mammography, and colon cancer screening. And you can see the darker the blue, the more community members do not have access to these important services. This is a very dramatic difference, right? And unfortunately, the same slide, so that's for women over the age of 65. This next slide shows the same thing for men over the age of 65. Once again, they're measuring flu shots, pneumonia shots, and colon cancer screening. So we have significant underscreening of very important services that can save lives. The next slide shows visits to a dentist or dental clinic, right? The tremendous disparity in a person's ability to be able to access dental care if you live east or along Highway 52. And then this slide, this shows colon cancer screening. So the darker the blue, the less access one has to colon cancer screening. And this is particularly problematic because we already reviewed that in and along these census tracts, there's a much higher rate of our community members who are Black, Indigenous, or people of color. And we know based on the latest data, according to the American Cancer Society, Black Americans are more than 20% more likely to develop colon cancer. And then they're 40% more likely to die from colon cancer. So we have significant underscreening in our community members that have the highest, they have the most severe disease and the greatest chance of dying from colon cancer. So this is another heartbreaking slide. Now let's go ahead and look at quality of life. So what are our own community members saying about their quality of life? And with these maps, the darker the color of the brown on the map, the worse the quality of life reported. Well, one thing that affects your quality of life is your teeth, right? Having all your teeth, though, this is looking at all teeth lost among adults 18 or older. So look, the darker the color, look at how many community members do not have their teeth. It's actually in the census tract where we're looking, it's actually 47% of our adults do not have their teeth. So we'll go through that later, but so this is a tremendous disparity. So when you think, I mean, if any of you all have had dental disease like I have, it's terribly painful. That's one issue, chronic pain. And then we know that it's associated with worse health outcomes, higher risk of heart disease, higher risk of infections. And of course, then you have the health of your teeth certainly affects your ability to eat certain foods and your, eating fruits and vegetables. And then you think about the social implications of losing your teeth at any age. And so this is a tremendous indicator that this has a significant negative impact, obviously, on quality of life on so many of our community members. And then let's look at sleeping less than 7 hours. Now, as a physician, I'm super passionate about if there's one habit that any of us need to pay attention to, it's getting good consolidated sleep. I know it's out of everyone's control, but to make trying to get adequate sleep a top health priority. And what's happening, and what you see is that you see a higher rate of sleep deprivation in along Highway 52. And I don't think it's that people aren't making it a priority, it's that they're working so hard to survive. And unfortunately, we know that people that sleep less than 7 hours a night who have chronic sleep deprivation have higher rates of heart attacks, higher rates of stroke, higher rates of diabetes, higher rates of obesity, higher rates of autoimmune disease, higher rates of infection, higher rates of attention deficit disorder. And now we're seeing a significant link to early cognitive decline and dementia. So very strong links we're seeing there. So this is going to have major health implications. It is having major health implications for our community. Now we're going to look, this next slide is no leisure time physical activity. And once again, we see the same pattern of disparity. If you live east or along Highway 52, it's just essentially leisure time physical activity. It just isn't a privilege that everyone has in our city because some people are working too hard to survive day to day to provide for their family. This is our community members reporting that their physical health was not good. And obviously self-reported in these same areas of disparities. And then now we look at mental health, not good. And we see a same pattern of disparities. And I want to go ahead and, so all of the statistics I showed you were on adults, but I want to transition and talk about our youth, because honestly, the information that kind of comes out of the mouths of babes is really the most telling. So ask our middle school students and high school students how we're doing. And unfortunately, we are not doing well. So based on the latest youth risk behavior survey, this was standardized survey that was given to 1,800 Winston-Salem, Forsyth County schools. And that was spread out through 17 different schools that represented all sorts of demographics. But essentially 1 out of 9 of our high school students had experienced sexual violence or rape in the prior 12 months. This was in 2019. This was before the pandemic. This was before evictions. This was before mass destabilization of homes. And then 1 out of 9 of our high school students had actually attempted suicide in the prior 12 months. And our latest youth risk behavior survey from our middle school students, there are 1,700, revealed that 1 out of 8 of our middle school students had actually attempted suicide.
No, it's
over
time for
his or
you
her lifetime.
to.
So that's a tough statistic.
Shut the door, please.
Oh, sorry. Now you can hear me. Sorry about that. So our own children, right? Our own were telling us that the mental health of our community was not great. And now you look at what's happened during the COVID-19 pandemic, right? All of us have suffered from more social isolation, especially you think how important social connection is, especially with teenagers and with students. So we've removed that has been removed from so many homes. You've lost the support of teachers, lost the support of friends, of sports members, of church communities, you name it. So you have heightened levels of social isolation. You have certainly much more financial strain and the most job turnover and loss in disadvantaged families. People that are working 2 to 3 jobs, right? And if they miss a day to take care of their child because their child has COVID, they get fired. So you have more financial strain in family. You've had more trauma and violence in the home, both physical and sexual abuse is on the rise, with more children victims in our community, higher rates of substance abuse, dramatic rise in time spent on technology and less outdoor time. Of course, significantly heightened educational disparities. And I think our county has done as well as they possibly could do. They've tried to make sure everyone has a Chromebook and a hotspot. But if you've ever tried to use a hotspot in a home, it might last for about 15, 20 minutes. So even though our city and county, I think they've done a tremendous job trying, there are tremendous educational disparities. And then of course, then you add on the loss of health and the loss of lives due to COVID-19. And then you add on that actually in our own city of Winston-Salem, from mid-June through actually mid-April, there were over 3,682 eviction hearings. And we know that higher rates, so these eviction hearings and complete. Now, when you look at the data, about 45 to 50% of those evictions were completed. But you can imagine just the stress of whether that eviction is completed or just going through the whole hearing process, very traumatic. And we know that evictions are linked to high rates of suicide, accidental drug and alcohol deaths, worse mental health, worse physical health, adverse birth outcomes, lower educational achievement in children. We know it's much higher levels of physical and sexual abuse as families get displaced, and then lower quality of housing. So, we had a major, I would say we were in a mental health crisis before this COVID-19 pandemic. And unfortunately, there is not a place in Winston-Salem that family services, they'll do little counseling, but there's not a place where someone actually that children and adolescents can actually get same day free walk-in psychological counseling and services. So we have a tremendous, very high need, and there's a big gap in the level of services. The services that are there, they can't accommodate the need right now. Sara? You're gonna need to unmute.
Sorry about that. All right. Okay, so I'm gonna take over now. So how does our city match up to other regions in Forsyth County in terms of health disparities? Well, not very good. As you can see from these numbers, Census Tract 6, which is where we desire very much intentionally to be, is worse. 90 out of 93 census tracts, Census Tract 6 ranks the worst in heart disease, stroke, diabetes, hypertension, kidney disease, COPD, arthritis, and various other health disparities. We are second worst in high cholesterol, all teeth loss, and preventative services for men and women over 65. We are third worst in smoking and asthma, fifth worst in the lacking of health insurance, and sixth worst in mental health. Change that, Lindsay. This list that you see in front of you, these items on this list when an individual is lacking in these things, they are the drivers of the health disparities in our community, east of 52. I mean, these are the very things that most of us don't think twice about in a day. You know, we get in our car, we go to work, you know, we fix our meals, you know, we do all of these things, some of us, without having to give it a second thought. You can change that, Lindsay. But I got to tell you, these things are the very things that our neighbors east of 52 are bearing the brunt of. Our neighbors east of 52 are the ones that are bearing the brunt of the disparities and the drivers of those disparities and the things that create stumbling blocks to healthier, happier lives are things most of us, many of us, don't have to think about. Our disability status, socioeconomic status, gender, sexual orientation, your citizenship status, ethnicity, age, language barriers, all of these things become insurmountable hurdles for people who are already on the lower end of every totem pole that you can measure. Go ahead, Lindsay. We tell you this. We take you on this tour of day-to-day trauma in our city, not because we want you to feel bad, even though it makes us all feel kind of ill. I'm sure you're not totally surprised at the data that we've presented for you. But I'm going to bet that if you're not outraged at what you just saw tonight, then we didn't do our job. And so maybe we need to go back over those maps, because those maps indicate how our neighbors are suffering right next to us, how our neighbors are lacking in the trust and collaboration that it requires between agencies and organizations and our city government to help them learn to live happier, healthier lives. Census Tract 6 seems like an island in a city that is supposed to be the shining city on the hill. The disconnect between east of 52 and west of 52 is palpable. And these are people just like you and me. Matter of fact, these people are me. Go ahead, Lindsay. This is one of our favorite quotes. The wound is the place where the light enters you. So now I'm going to get a little personal. When I say I am those people, I am those people. I'm a survivor of every one of those drivers of disparity. As a kid that aged out of foster care, as a teen mother, I've known homelessness, hunger, abandonment, rape, incarceration, mental health issues, health issues. I've been addicted. I'm not different from the people that we're talking about. I am those people. The only difference in me and them is I kind of made it halfway to the other side, even with the deck stacked against me. Lindsay, you can change. You know, we come to you as a Unity Wellness Center because we know that Winston-Salem is packed full of compassionate, kind, caring, empathetic people. But something's not getting done. And too many of us are suffering in silence. Too many of us are the invisible population of our city. Too many of us aren't being heard. Too many of us aren't being seen. Too many of us aren't being understood. That's why we created the Unity Wellness Center, because we know that. We see that. But what we found is that For every sad, unfortunate story, there is strength and there is a superpower in sharing all of our life stories, not just the good, but the bad too. That's what I do. I share everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that's what the Unity Wellness Center will be. It'll be the place that you come and you're seen and heard. Our center, because we know the need in our community, will be offering under one roof, free of charge, to anyone. And it has nothing to do with your socioeconomic status or your zip code or your job or your even your ability to pay. We want to make a space where everyone knows that trauma is universal. It doesn't care what color you are, doesn't care where you live, doesn't care what job you have or whether or not you have a job. Sorry about that. Am I back? Okay, sorry, my phone rang. Sorry. So under one roof, we will be offering the following services: free mental health services with a licensed clinical psychologist who specializes in child and adolescent trauma, mental health and trauma. Peer support mentoring program, that's what I do, for mental health and addiction recovery, where everyone is valued for their story, the good and the bad. You know, we will, sorry, I'm so sorry. My phone wants to ring. We will offer comprehensive health and wellness assessments for everyone in our community, because if we don't know about our health issues, then we can't take care of them. So we've got to know, we've got to be in the know, and that's what we're going to do. We will be offering expedited connections with local mental and medical health services, personalized navigation to community resources, because you know what I learned as a survivor is that while the services may be there, you can't always access them. You know, for people like me who don't have a car because I can't afford one, I don't have a driver's license. So if I can't get there on the bus, then I can't get there. And so that service is no good to me. You know, so we have to alleviate the things that create stumbling blocks and hurdles. You know, we will institute innovative art-based healing programs, because another thing I know as a spoken word artist is some of my best healing is done when I write my poetry, when I express myself artistically in a way that doesn't box me in to my issue, but allows me to express the things that don't always come easily for all of us. We will be offering community-driven solutions where the community are the people who will heal each other. At our center, not only can you come in and take part in our programs that we offer, but you're going to be able to come back to our center and be a volunteer. The guy who just got out of jail will be welcome to come and lead a group on what it's like to try and reinstitute yourself into your community once you've been incarcerated. You know, the lady who just got out of rehab, she's welcome. She's welcome to come and tell us what it felt like to finally hit rock bottom and then see the light at the end of the tunnel. You know, the guy that's been chased by the gang, we're going to welcome him with open arms and let him come and talk to our young people and explain to them what it's like to resist the pull of a gang. And when you don't have support at home, how do you maintain? We're going to let that young lady who got molested by her coach, we're going to let her come in and talk to our young people and tell them that it's okay to tell, that it's all right to be broken, that it's okay to have trauma, that there is healing in all of us, and that together we find that for each of us, that we create a space where there is no judgment, there is just community. That's what we do at the Unity Wellness Center. Lindsay, you can change. Sorry. So where are we now and where do we go from here? So we are struggling to find funding right now as a new initiative with a totally non-traditional model. We are seeking funding from several different areas, and we're about to institute a capital campaign that will be concentrating on creating a startup fund so that we can go ahead and institute our adolescent mental health peer program, and some of our key programs that we want to get started. We've been out there in the community building trust and creating relationships and meeting our community members where they are, when they are. You know, we are letting people know that we're here for the community, that this isn't about our name being on a building or getting credit for a program. This is about creating simple solutions to very complex issues. And in doing that and allowing the community become the driving force of their own personal healing. Because what I know as a survivor is that the healing comes in the sharing. The healing comes in the sharing, in the ability to be seen as an individual and not as my issue. The healing comes when I find my community understands me and accepts me and allows me to be broken and allows me to find healing and helps me find it. That's what we want. We want to reinvest in our community where everyone is valued and everyone is seen, and everybody deserves that. So I'm going to end my little talk by saying to you, if you don't know anybody that has a different story than yours, that lives a different lifestyle, that may not be just like you, I want to encourage you to come meet some of us on the other side. Come meet me. Come meet people like me, people who have struggled but want better, not just for ourselves, but for our families and our communities. Come make a new friend. Come to the Unity Wellness Center and become part of our volunteer corps. Come meet your community, your neighbors that your paths would have never crossed had it not been for the Unity Wellness Center. Come in, sit down, have a cup of coffee, have a conversation, make a new friend, and allow your healing and your help to be somebody else's roadmap to a better, healthier, happier life.
So that's kind of it. that's the whirlwind of kind of who we are and why we're motivated to do what we're hoping to do. I guess one on a level, one thing is we are in conversations with county commissioners and with mayor and with city council. And I guess the big ask for us is if you kind of believe in this initiative and this vision is, I guess, just talk about it if you don't mind with other people. And if you happen to know any people in government, or if you happen to know anyone that would benefit from these services, we have a website that you could reach Sarah and I by email. Catherine, you can share our cell phones if you want to call, so if you guys want to reach us, we're totally available and open. But I think that's what we realized, that so many people in Winston-Salem kind of know each other, but we have 2 centers for health disparities in our city, and they do amazing jobs and many work, but there haven't been as many conversations like kind of pointing out these specific areas in a public. And I think it's information the public wants and needs and deserves to know. And so we're looking forward to collaborating with there's so many wonderful people in the community, as Sarah said, so many great organizations, and including the health disparity organizations are just fabulous, but we're just looking for more partnership.
Thank you, Lindsay, and thank you, Sarah. I believe we all hold deep gratitude for your presence with us, for your sharing of lots of very powerful data, but also for your personal stories. Sarah, we hold your story with respect and care and much gratitude that you offered it to us, among us, and we would be so honored to count you as a new friend, both of you. I want to open up the rest of our time to questions or responses. If you have responses of gratitude, wondering, any experiences in the community, or just want to learn more about what Lindsay and Sara are doing or hope to do, I invite you to speak those questions or comments aloud or put them in the chat. And Lindsay and Sara can see them and respond to them, and I'll help with that. Speaking of the chat, Brent put the website for the Unity Wellness Center in the chat. So it's there if you'd like to go to that. So if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to come forth with them now.
This is Judy. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks for this wonderful presentation. And I was so interested, and I furiously took notes. And I'm wondering if this PowerPoint is on your website. I'd love to look at all these statistics again. I know that's just the beginning, but I'd like to see them again.
We can definitely work on it. Right now we have a good summary. It's not on our website just yet. We're having some website issues.
Understand.
I'd be more than happy. We'd be more. I have a great kind of summary of some of the data, and I can anyway. So if you don't mind, Catherine, maybe you can get me Judy's contact information, and I'll find a way to get it to you in a digestible way. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that's great. And where is Census Tract 6? What is where is that? Is that over there in the Boston, near Cook? I was trying to locate it because it's on the west side of 52, right?
On the east.
It's east of Highway 52.
It's still east of 52, because I noticed it seemed to be. Well, maybe I was looking at the wrong thing. But
if you're familiar with a community care center, it's very close. We're in the same census tract as community care center, which interestingly,
I used to work there. Yeah.
Yes. And so they do such a wonderful job. But interesting, like community care center, they don't provide any child or adolescent mental health. So we were just in touch with their executive director, and he's super excited about what we're doing. And where we want to be is actually in Rupert Bell Park. If you've never been there, it's gorgeous. That's where Chris Paul, when his grandfather died, he actually he dedicated two beautiful basketball courts that his group perfectly maintains over there, and that's where ultimately we'd like to be. We'd like to become part of Rupert Bell.
I'm sorry, this is Sylvia. This is Sylvia. You broke up when you gave a location. I couldn't hear what you said.
Sorry, Rupert Bell Park. Okay. Yeah, yes. Rupert Bell Park. It's gorgeous. And I wanted to mention a little plug if any of you guys have any interest. So Sara and I are Unity Wellness Center, along with the Mental Health Association of Forsyth County, the Hispanic League, and Triad Restorative Justice. We're hosting a talent show of course. It's called, the theme is You Are Not Alone. It's going to be on July 24th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's going to be at Rupert Bell Park. And we're going to have a 4-hour talent show of sorts, and it's called You Are Not Alone, and it's artistic expressions of trauma and healing. And so we're going to have between 20 to 30 community members get up and talk maybe 3 to 5 minutes about an area of trauma, and then they're going to perform. They're going to do martial arts, they're going to do step, they're going to do basketball, they're going to do songwriting, they're going to do poetry, anything, dance, you name it, song, piano, vocal, juggling, whatever anyone does from a healing perspective. So we're super excited about that. That's going to be a big community event. And we're also going to have a kids zone area. We're going to have a talking area. We're going to have a napping station. Anyway, it should be a lot of fun. So that's a big event because we're trying to create this connection and destigmatize. And I hope that Sara will hopefully do one of her poems. Her poetry is so powerful. Like I said, that's how this whole initiative kind of got started. And it's just the impact of someone. We think that art just kind of cuts through. It removes, anyway, you just feel such a deep connection with somebody, something greater than yourself through this kind of artistic sharing. So we're really excited about this event. Any other questions? Y'all have been such a lovely, attentive audience.
This has been a very powerful program, and I would hope that if you two ladies would be willing to come back, and if Catherine and
Speak
other
up just a
people
little
would
bit,
bless
Kevin.
it. I'm sorry?
Speak up just a little bit.
Yeah, I apologize. I mean, I hope rather than just 15 people from Knollwood seeing this, I would think this would be a really good Wednesday night presentation if these two talented young ladies would be willing to come back. This is a wonderfully presented program, and the facts that you guys have given us and the personal story from Ms. Hines is really powerful, and I thank you.
Kevin,
I want to jump in with Kevin.
That's already in the works for the fall. So I'm glad, as chair of Faith Formation Committee, we're of the same mind. So
let me just throw a little comic relief, but somewhat. Dr. Peral, are your children basketball players also?
They they are. My two boys are. Yeah, I'm now the shortest. I'm 6 feet and I'm the shortest in my family. My daughter's 6'2", my son's 6'3", no 6'4", he's 13, and then my other son is 6'4.5", he's 15.
And you're not going to brag on your former star husband, right? Her husband's
no, his ego is big enough. He's a wonderful man, and he was a very wonderful basketball player too.
Yeah.
Well, very quick personal note about Lindsay. Lindsay was a basketball star at Wake in her own right. And the way that I know Lindsay is through Holly Holman, a dear friend of mine, of course, Jennifer Davis's daughter. Holly and Lindsay were roommates together at Wake Forest. So that's the way back connection. And Lindsay, most of the people on this Zoom know Jennifer and Bill Davis well. So
yes. Yeah, but they're such wonderful people.
Yeah. Other questions or comments or resonance about what Sara and Lindsay presented?
I'm interested in recreation. What is being done for recreation? That's been an interest of mine, of reaching the youth, and that. What do you have, and what do you need to have?
Yeah. Sara, do you want to take that?
I'm sorry, what?
About recreation. I said, do you want to take the question on recreation, or do you want me to take that?
Go ahead, Lindsay.
Well, and that's one reason we agree so much is how critical it is to provide, safe recreational spaces, and ones that can be accessed. And so that's one reason why Rupert Bell is such a perfect location, because it's such a gorgeous, there's a baseball field there. You can play football out there. There are nature walks, there's trees. There are the two beautifully maintained outdoor covered basketball courts, because we know that physical movement can be so therapeutic. And so it's really cool. So we're actually in conversations with, Chris Paul's mother and the Chris Paul Family Foundation. And so we have a lot of, and there's Hoops for Hope that's going on. We have a wonderful woman that's involved in using kind of basketball as a way to, to kind of transform, be a transformative experience in people's lives with peer coaching and counseling. So we're talking with martial arts people. We're talking with, so we do have a lot of connections, and we feel like that's going to be a very important way to actually get teenagers and youth to just start hanging out, because it takes a little while, of course, to trust someone. Who are we? I mean, we hang out at Rupert Bell, so now we are trusted people no longer. When we first pulled up there, people are like, what are you doing? And now we are very, anyway, we have a new community of friends. And so anyway, but I think that's a wonderful point, Mr. Wagner, is that we realize how important that physical component is, especially for getting our youth involved and making connections with each other and hopefully with our center. So we are completely open to any ideas that you might have about ways to kind of expand and maybe target our youth to improve their health. We are very, very interested in those conversations. So let us know if you want to connect.
I used to work in Northern Virginia, and we would take our youth and children into Anacostia in 9 particular centers called Citygate. And recreation was a key in which our youth would play with their youth. But we asked them, what do you need? Not what we're going to provide for you.
Yeah.
So they were telling us, So we got families involved with families.
Yeah.
And we would go in and do soccer. We would do touch football on the cement. They only had the
Yeah.
cement area to do that in.
Yeah.
So going to where they are and listening to them and being
Yeah.
with them and eating meals with them,
Mhm.
developing relationships. And it changed our church in coming in. So dads
Yeah.
and moms and teenagers, but the trust level needed to be earned.
Right.
It took a long-term time for us to, but we found that to be transformational for us.
Wonderful.
And I'm wondering that could be something of tying in. Recreation is a key we found. And they're beating us and cheering. But it's something to be considered. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. Lindsay and Sarah, we do have a question in the chat from
Yes.
Cindy asking, I may have missed this, but will most of the center be volunteer led? And what positions would be paid, if any?
Great. So good question. We're just working on our budget today. We had to revise it because we want to get our child psychologist, child and adolescent psychologist working as early as possible. That's going to be a full-time position. Our child and adolescent, that'll be a paid position, child licensed clinical psychologist. Sarah's position as a director of peer support services will be a paid position. My position will be a paid position. I'll be part-time as medical director. We're going to have a full-time paid position for a community health navigator. And then we have 2 very small part-time positions. One will be kind of to help with bookkeeping finances, and one will be a payroll accountant. Like we have to plan with that with grants and all of that stuff. So those are but from an operational standpoint, they're kind of 4 of us staff members that are going to be they're going to be helping oversee the programming, the policies, the procedures, all of those details.
Awesome. Thank you. And Sarah, my heart was warm just by your invitation to come and volunteer and just be a part of this initiative. So I would love to hear a bit more of what y'all envision in terms of volunteer opportunities.
Oh, that's great. I'll take that. So the beauty of peer support is that while those of us with certifications that handle severe mental illness and severe addiction issues like I do, we're kind of specialized. But peer-to-peer, our peer-to-peer program encompasses everything. So we will pair our peers with members of our community for anything from I need someone to support me if I have a court date, to I'm not sure how to set up a bank account, to I don't know how to deal with Medicaid, or I don't know what I'm eligible for. Our peer-to-peer program will enable almost anyone to be paired with a peer as a support person that can help walk them through even day-to-day issues. We have people who can't shop on their own, who can't go to the grocery store on their own, and who could use a peer that would be available to assist them with that. The volunteer opportunities will be so vast because we realize there is value in every single community member, no matter what stripe of life you come from, because we're going to find someone that needs someone to help them with something. So I encourage everyone to come by the center, come just hang out. You don't even have to come hang out, get to know the people and build the relationships that will allow you to then share yourself with someone else. Because I got to tell you, as a survivor, I get better every time I share my story. So while some of it is very traumatic and a lot of it is full of some sad situations and lots of traumas, I got to tell you, I wouldn't be who I am today if all of those things hadn't been a part of my life. And so I don't deny any of them. I allow them to be my superpowers. Every trial I've ever gone through is now my gifted roadmap to someone else so that they can find the type of healing that I have. Like I said, I'm 8 years out of addiction. I got 2 degrees post-addiction. I know healing is possible. I'm not saying I'm fixed. I'm not saying that I don't still have cracks and broken places. I do, but that's the beauty of this. I get to tell people about those broken spaces within me, and I don't have to hide from them, and I don't have to allow the shame to drive me back into addiction or drive me into crime or drive me into areas that are unhealthy. I get to be honest and authentic. And in that authenticity, I get to connect with other people and let them understand that there is no stigma attached to any of my traumas for me anymore. I understand that as a Black woman, that therapy is not the normal, but I also know that talk therapy works. And when we talk to others and when we share with others, we find not only our own healing, but we help guide other people toward their healing. And that's what I do. As a peer support, I just guide other people through some of the things that I've been through. I understand addiction. I understand incarceration. I understand being hungry. You know, I understand homelessness. And in that understanding, I offer empathy. And I offer myself as a friend, as a guidepost, as a bounce off. You tell me your issues and let's make a plan together. That's what peers do. Peer supports just support and help guide other people. And that's the beauty of a community, because we can all help guide someone else to a place of healing.
And I think with additional, I like that the peer support, what Sarah's leading is, that's the cornerstone. Like that has perhaps more value than anything else in terms of the impact and outreach that we'll have. But also we'll need volunteers that'll hopefully volunteer artists that can lead some healing art, some healing art sessions, some photographers to take people out. And, we can, share cameras and people can take photography as part of, maybe that's part of the healing, right? So what is beautiful in the world today? You know what I mean? Or what is sad in the world today? So we're going to look at volunteers to help lead art. We're looking at volunteers to hopefully help with tutoring, because we imagine that hopefully we'll have youth hanging out there. And so it's going to be, right now it's going to be flexible to some degree, and that we want our community, but definitely tutors, leading art sessions, and then even like greeters, just someone hanging out. When someone walks in, hey, have you ever been here? Welcome to Unity Wellness. Would you like some coffee? Would you like to sit down? Because we want people to feel welcome, not that they have to take advantage of a surface, but this is a place where they can just be seen and heard. And so we're going to have very vast volunteer opportunities.
Thank y'all for sharing that. We have a sense of you now. We have a sense of your center, your organization, your mission, your drive, and your dreams for this community space. So we're so grateful to know more. Grateful to know more about the disparities, though we are outraged and they do hurt. And they're outraged / chagrined, embarrassed, uncomfortable, in pain about it. But here you are offering a center of unity and hope in the midst of that. And we're grateful to know about that. Your website is in the chat. I will make sure that your website's also included in the Facebook post when I post the video of this Zoom tomorrow. And it will be on our church's YouTube channel. And so all of us gathered, please go to the Unity Wellness Center website if you'd like to be in contact with Lindsay and Sara and know more. We appreciate your presence here this evening. So all of you, deep gratitude and go in peace.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lindsay. Take care.